The last voicemail my older brother ever sent me sounded almost cheerful, yet something about his voice made every instinct in my body scream that something was terribly wrong. Less than 24 hours later, I was standing inside a federal courthouse in Denver, accused of stealing company funds that I had spent years protecting, while the people I trusted the most quietly watched my life fall apart, as if they had been waiting for that moment all along. My name is Nolan Hayes, and for nearly 12 years I worked as a forensic financial investigator for one of the largest consulting firms in Colorado, where my job was to uncover hidden fraud before it destroyed businesses and families. Friends often joked that I could spot a fake transaction faster than most people could recognize their own handwriting, but no amount of professional experience prepared me for discovering that the biggest financial crime of my life had been carefully planned inside my own family long before I ever noticed the warning signs. Everything started after my grandfather Everett passed away at the age of 83, leaving behind a successful chain of construction companies, several commercial buildings, and an investment portfolio worth millions of dollars that he had built through decades of relentless work and discipline. During the reading of his estate, the attorney explained that Grandpa wanted every grandchild to receive an equal share only after an independent trustee confirmed that each beneficiary had demonstrated financial responsibility and personal integrity over the following 12 months, a condition that immediately changed the atmosphere inside the conference room. Most relatives politely accepted the unusual requirement, but I noticed uncomfortable glances moving between my Uncle Raymond, my cousin Dylan, and my Aunt Melissa, as if they had silently rehearsed another plan before anyone entered the building. I ignored the strange behavior because I believed blood was stronger than money, and I convinced myself that my family would never allow greed to destroy relationships that had taken generations to build, a mistake that would soon cost me almost everything I had worked so hard to earn. The weeks that followed looked perfectly normal on the surface, yet tiny details began piling up like loose threads waiting for someone patient enough to pull them together. Uncle Raymond suddenly started driving a luxury SUV. Dylan began posting expensive vacations across social media, and Aunt Melissa kept insisting that the estate distribution would happen much sooner than the attorney had originally explained. Even though no official updates had been released, my younger sister Emma quietly admitted one evening that she had overheard Raymond making a strange phone call during a family barbecue, where he repeatedly mentioned that everything would fall into place once the responsible one was out of the picture. She thought he was talking about a business rival, but the uneasy look on her face told me she had started wondering whether those words were actually directed at me, because everyone in the family knew I was the only person capable of exposing financial fraud before it could succeed. Instead of confronting anyone, I treated the situation like every investigation I had handled throughout my career and began collecting facts instead of emotions, knowing that assumptions often destroy the truth before it has a chance to reveal itself. Every bank statement, public property record, business filing, and legal document became another piece of a puzzle that slowly formed a disturbing picture showing unexplained transfers, newly created companies, and suspicious partnerships that all traced back to members of my own family. Just when I believed I was getting close to understanding their scheme, my office security badge stopped working without warning on an ordinary Tuesday morning, and two federal investigators were already waiting inside the lobby asking me to accompany them for questioning. Every employee turned to watch as I walked beside the agents, completely unaware that someone had just accused me of secretly moving millions of dollars through fraudulent accounts, an accusation so carefully planned that even I struggled to understand how anyone could have fabricated evidence that looked frighteningly real. The interview room felt colder with every passing minute, as the investigators carefully arranged stacks of financial records across the metal table, and every document carried my employee identification number beside transactions I had never approved or even seen before. They remained professional throughout the questioning, yet their expressions revealed that the evidence appeared convincing enough to destroy my career unless I could explain how millions of dollars had disappeared through accounts connected to projects under my supervision. I forced myself to stay calm because panic had never solved a financial investigation, and I carefully studied every page until one tiny inconsistency caught my attention like a lighthouse cutting through a violent storm. The digital authorization timestamps followed a pattern that could not exist within the secure system I helped design years earlier, proving that someone with advanced technical knowledge had deliberately manufactured convincing records while expecting investigators to focus on the large numbers instead of the subtle details hidden inside the electronic audit trail. After nearly 3 exhausting hours, the lead investigator leaned back and admitted they were placing me on temporary administrative leave rather than making an immediate arrest because several pieces of evidence raised questions they could not ignore. I walked out of the federal building carrying nothing except my phone and a folder of copied documents, realizing that my reputation had already begun collapsing while the real criminals were probably celebrating the success of the first stage of their carefully planned operation. That evening, I returned to my apartment expecting silence. But Emma was already waiting outside my door with tears in her eyes and a sealed envelope she had secretly taken from Aunt Melissa. Before anyone noticed it was missing, inside was a confidential planning document discussing control of the family estate after my expected disqualification, complete with handwritten notes dividing properties, investment accounts, and future profits among relatives who were acting as though my downfall had already become a guaranteed fact instead of an uncertain possibility. I read every page of the document at least 3 times before setting it down on my kitchen table, and each sentence confirmed that my family had been planning for my disappearance long before the investigators ever questioned me about the missing money. Instead of wondering whether I would clear my name, they had already discussed how to divide valuable commercial properties, investment accounts, and voting control of my grandfather's companies, proving they expected me to be permanently removed from the inheritance. Emma admitted that she had started noticing unusual meetings several months earlier, when Uncle Raymond regularly invited Dylan and Aunt Melissa into his private office after family gatherings while everyone else was distracted with dinner and conversation. She never imagined they were organizing something illegal until she accidentally overheard Raymond say that once I lost my professional license, nobody would believe anything I said because my entire career depended on financial credibility, a sentence that still echoed in her mind every time she tried to sleep. The more evidence I examined, the clearer the pattern became, and I realized this conspiracy had never been built around stealing money alone because it was designed to erase my reputation at the same time. Whoever organized the scheme understood that if the public believed I had committed financial fraud, every future defense I offered would sound like the desperate excuse of a guilty man rather than the careful analysis of a forensic investigator who had spent his entire career exposing criminals. Late that night my phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number containing only one sentence and an address to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, followed by a warning that changed everything. The message said that someone involved in the conspiracy wanted to tell me the truth before innocent people paid the price. But I had to come alone, because powerful people were watching every move I made and time was running out faster than I could imagine. I barely slept that night because every possibility raced through my mind. And by sunrise I had already decided that ignoring the message would leave me with nothing except unanswered questions and a ruined future. Before leaving my apartment, I copied every document Emma had given me onto encrypted storage drives, emailed backup files to my attorney, and left a handwritten note explaining exactly where I was going in case the mysterious meeting turned into another carefully planned trap. The warehouse stood alone near an abandoned rail yard where rusted freight cars and broken windows created an eerie silence that made every distant sound feel louder than it really was. I stepped inside with cautious determination, scanning every shadow, until a middle-aged woman slowly emerged from behind a row of stacked shipping containers, keeping her hands visible as she quietly introduced herself as Vivian Brooks, a former financial controller who had once worked for one of my grandfather's companies. Vivian explained that she had resigned nearly a year earlier after discovering secret accounting records that never appeared in the official company books, and she claimed those hidden files documented years of illegal loans, forged signatures, and diverted corporate funds involving several members of my own family. She admitted she had remained silent because she feared retaliation, but after hearing about the accusations against me on the news, she realized the real criminals were preparing to sacrifice an innocent person to protect themselves from exposure. Before handing me a small encrypted flash drive, Vivian looked directly into my eyes and warned me that the information inside could destroy powerful people if it ever reached federal investigators with enough supporting evidence. she also revealed one final detail that sent a chill through my entire body, explaining that the mastermind behind the conspiracy was not Uncle Raymond as everyone believed, but someone far more patient, far more intelligent, and much closer to me than I had ever dared to suspect. The drive contained thousands of internal emails, hidden accounting files, voice recordings, and scanned contracts that painted a picture far darker than anything I had imagined, and every document connected years of financial crimes to a carefully organized network operating behind the respected image of our family business. Then I opened one final folder labeled Executive Approval, and my heart nearly stopped because every fraudulent transfer, every forged authorization, and every instruction carried the electronic signature of my older brother, Ethan, the one person I had trusted, without question, for my entire life. For several minutes I could not speak because my memories refused to match the evidence glowing on the laptop screen, and I kept hoping there was another explanation hidden somewhere inside the files that would clear his name. Vivian quietly explained that Ethan had spent years building the perfect public reputation, while secretly controlling every illegal transaction through layers of shell companies, knowing that if anything ever went wrong, the investigation would naturally fall on the family member with direct access to the financial systems, which was me. Instead of confronting Ethan alone, I delivered every file to my attorney and the federal investigators who had originally questioned me, allowing independent forensic experts to verify every document before a single accusation became public. Within days they confirmed the evidence was authentic. Search warrants were issued across several states. Company offices were sealed, and investigators recovered millions of dollars that had been hidden inside fake consulting firms created solely to disguise stolen assets. The final hearing lasted only a few hours because the evidence was overwhelming, and one after another the people who had lied under oath began admitting their roles after realizing the truth could no longer be buried beneath forged paperwork and false accusations. When the judge officially dismissed every allegation against me and restored my professional reputation, I felt no desire for revenge because the greatest victory was knowing that honesty had survived a conspiracy built entirely on deception. While those responsible walked away in handcuffs to face the consequences of their own decisions, several months later I stood outside my grandfather's restored headquarters watching new employees begin their first day under honest leadership, grateful that the company would finally represent the values he had worked so hard to build instead of the greed that had nearly destroyed everything he left behind. If this story reminded you that integrity is always worth protecting, even when the truth seems impossible to prove, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.